Hey, good day, Calvary family. Want to welcome our family, Malawi and India. So glad that you guys can join us and glad that we can all journey together in this new path this year. Leading up to this new year, we really been praying a lot about like what does Jesus have for us to do as a church? And many times it's just kind of keep doing what you're doing, teaching the word and so forth. But this new year, we really felt that discipleship was something that he had for us. Not that it wasn't like any other year or something like that, but this year it just seemed to be different. And so we launched a new theme for this year, and it's called Ordinary Discipleship. Ordinary, not extraordinary, just ordinary discipleship. Jesus has called all those who believe in him to follow him and to become his disciples. And we want to be able to say, each individual person, and again, as a family of believers in Jesus Christ as well, we want to be able to say at the end of the year, without any hint of arrogance or pride or doubt, that I am a disciple of Jesus just as much as the early disciples that were with Jesus. That's our movement. Now, the question comes up as to, what does an ordinary disciple do? Well, glad that you asked. They live a life of following Jesus and walking in his ways in the midst of their world, in their daily existence. And what that looks like, well, we're going to be unpacking that as we go through the year. But do let me say this to you. It's ordinary. That is, it's something that you and I can do in our daily lives, but it's something that we set ourselves to do as well. And so it's going to be really good. First things first, we're going to be doing, and we are doing, a read through the New Testament program for the entire church family. What that looks like is we're going to read through the whole New Testament as a church. So one chapter a day, 6 days a week, Sunday off for the year. Why do this? Well, the reason's real simple. A disciple is one who is a devoted follower of Jesus who walks in his ways. How are we going to walk in his ways if we don't know his ways? And so how do we get to know his ways? Well, he told us what his ways are. He revealed them to us. We have the Bible. It's all about him. And the New Testament is all about following him. And so we're going to read through the New Testament to learn to know his ways. And this is how we're going to do it. So pay attention, okay? We're not starting with Matthew, which is the first book of the New Testament. I know it's thrown some people into a little bit of confusion already. So if you're in like the 5th chapter of Matthew right now, stop, jump over to the 5th chapter of Mark and pick up, okay? Mark, that's what we're starting with. Mark, okay, got that? It's good. So we started on Monday with chapter 1 of Mark. If you're behind, you could catch up where we are today, chapter 5. And you could backtrack we're in Matthew, just backtrack, pick up with Mark where we are. Why start with Mark? Because it's the shortest of the Gospels, only 16 chapters. In 3 weeks, we'll have read through the entire ministry of Jesus from Mark's perspective. And then we're going to jump over to Acts and we're going to read the early church, the account of the early church. Why Acts next? To confuse you. No, reality is because we have 4 Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all tell of Jesus' ministry. As we're reading through the New Testament, I don't want to be too far from the context of Jesus' ministry. And so we're going to do something like this. We're going to read Mark, then we're going to go to Acts, and then after Acts, next is Romans, and then we're going to go back and we're going to pick up Matthew, and then we're going to jump where we left off after Romans. We're going to pick up 1st and 2nd Corinthians, followed by Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians. Then we're going to jump back again, grab Luke, and then we're going to jump forward where we left off. 1st, 2nd Thessalonians, go all the way up to James. Then we're going to go back and grab Jesus' ministry as recorded by John, and then we're going to finish out the New Testament. So during the fast, I asked you to put on the reading of the New Testament. After 40 days, I think you will be convinced that you want to read it through with the entire church family in the year. Okay, so What if I can't read or I just detest reading? Okay, so family in the US, get an app. Let it read to you. Family outside of the States, have someone with a Bible read it to you and gather some other people together as well. And you can hear it read to you each day. Look, if reading the Bible is not a practice to you right now, make it a practice. You'll get the hang of it and it'll be amazing. If you have a family, like do it with your kids if they're home, right? It doesn't matter how old they are. If they're like really young, just read them like a section out of what you read for the day. Like I'm having my kids read through the program or do the program as well. So at dinner time, like a half hour before dinner, I'll ask them if they've read their passages yet. And then when we get together, we'll just briefly talk about what we read. On the first day that we did this, almost all the kids, so Mark chapter 1, almost all the kids said the one thing they noticed about the Gospel of Mark is that it moves fast. In fact, one of the kids said, I think Mark had ADHD too. Not sure who they were referring to in the family, but anyway, I got to point out to him, though, the reason why it moves so fast is because Mark uses the word immediately a lot. And he also uses the word then, or then he went, or then he did this. You see all these fast-paced words. What's interesting, and I told him this, I'm like, watch who Jesus stops for. Like you have all this fast-moving stuff in the first chapter. Who'd he stop for? Everything stops with the man who had leprosy. So listen, this is the introduction to the beginning of our Read Through the Bible program. Next week, I'm actually going to do a devote out of the passage. But for this week, what you get is this. Mark. We're doing the Gospel of Mark first. So read up to chapter 6 by the end of this week, or for Saturday, it's just tomorrow. Next week, which is the 14th, you will have read up to chapter 12. So it's going to be an amazing year as we journey together in paths of ordinary discipleship. I really look forward to doing it with you. God bless you guys. Thanks for listening.